Hey, Scuttlebutt listeners, welcome back, and thank you for joining us. I am, as always, am Vic, and I am really honored to be here with the leadership of the Weapons Training Battalion here in Quantico. I'm here with Colonel Jones, Gunner Costa. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Vic.
Yeah, this is great. So, gentlemen, if you wouldn't mind, sir, we'll start with you. If you could just sort of give us a little bit of your background, where you're coming from, and sort of what led you to being the CEO of Weapons Training Battalion.
Yeah, okay. So just topically, the important stuff, so you know how I got here, as you said, and sort of my own personal insights on marksmanship. Commissioned in 97, did a deployment, BLT, prior to OIF. Company commander, S3 Alpha, OPSO 17, 3 tours of Iraq. Last time I qualified on the rifle range was as Alpha 17 CO with iron sights, right? So, you know, I just got done with Gunner Costa and his Marines today shooting SCO and IR. So it's vast change in capability, and Gunner will hit on that a lot. RSCO battalion commander at ITBE, so do have some experience training entry-level marksmanship in the infantry. Headquarters battalion, CO 2nd Mardiv for a year, so I've been in charge of a unit in the GCE that's not an infantry unit from an Every Marines Rifleman perspective. Last two jobs before coming to Weapons Training Battalion was a G3 and Chief Staff 2nd Marine Division, and obviously I'm here and loving it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, welcome. And Gunner Costa, how about you?
So enlisted in the Marine Corps in 98, was a 0351 assaultman initially, eventually became a scout sniper, various infantry battalions, ran scout sniper school down at SOI East, got commissioned in 2014 as a gunner, various battalions and billets with that, and came here to Weapons Training Battalion as the Marksmanship Program Management Section Director in just December of 2019.
Okay. And how much longer you got then?
Probably at the end of it, probably looking towards summer, fall time frame.
Okay. Well, again, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. So the reason we came in, you guys recently did a Brutecast with Major Ian Brown. It was extremely informative. We just really want to give you an opportunity to follow up for our listeners who maybe didn't catch that, and also to give some updates, because that was about, 5-6 months ago?
Yep, and it was right before we talked to General Iams after the Combat Marksmanship Symposium, so there's certainly some other things to talk about.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, just sort of, I guess, as a leveling exercise, could you talk to us about the Advanced Marksmanship Program and some of the impetus behind the change? Because I guess, as a further leveling, it isn't your... We've had some articles. We had one in particular written recently that sort of made leveled the accusation at the Marine Corps that the training that we conduct today would be recognizable by our grandfathers and maybe even generations before. So, AMTP, what was sort of, where was what was the site that you had that we needed to make this change?
So a major catalyst, I would point to the Marksmanship Lethality CBA that was conducted in 2018. That pointed out some glaring gaps in our training, and obviously specifically related towards marksmanship.
And that equates to lethality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll definitely give you a
please.
definition of lethality shortly, because it can be a nebulous term, right? But so that CBA really showed, this is what we're doing right now, and this is what we cannot do. And cannot do was very much some combat conditions that replay out frequently. So you're talking about engaging moving threats, or Marines engaging while the Marine is moving, night shooting, just some basic combat things. These situations happen. So from that, you had really the Office of Naval Research, and specifically guys with the Naval Health Research Center. They started, how do we help the Marine Corps? And they fall under this section, I believe it's Code 34, so Marine Expeditionary Warfare. And those guys started looking around for who's doing some novel things with marksmanship. Simultaneously, a couple of predecessors of mine, they were looking as well. Roads kind of meet, and they find, oddly enough, a young sergeant in the Air National Guard. This guy was running this package of sorts, and it was really it was supportive of like a CQB training course that he was running, but it was all fixated on the marksmanship. what he was doing was novel in a lot of areas. He was pushing the envelope in a lot of areas, but he was really fixating on incorruptible weapons handling, let's say. And it was regardless of the outside stimulus you're receiving, whether that's pain, stress, chaotic environment, confusion, you are going to perform as it relates to marksmanship. And that was pistol, rifle, day, night, right? So over the past couple of years between Weapons Training Battalion and O&R, when working with that guy, we were developing this. The need for it really comes from, I would tell you that, like that previous comment, our training hasn't been updated in a very long time. And we had some, I would say, archaic points of view on how to train to marksmanship. So it was somewhat organic, and then Force Design 2030, right? Comes about,
I definitely want to touch on that. Yeah.
It's almost like everyone's thinking the same thing at once.
Yeah.
And we didn't all quite have a meeting at the same time.
Yeah, it's like,
But
hey, you're gonna be alone and unafraid on this EAB,
sure.
And we're gonna have a hard time getting you ammo, but we're not gonna update your
Right.
accuracy.
So some of the, even with the annual rifle qual, that was updated, and it was several years from a little bit too late. So some of the impetus of marksmanship updating comes from just equipment.
Yeah.
So the old qualifications was really designed with iron sights, and then you saw once you gave Marines an optic, an ACOG, right, they started to shoot better.
Yeah.
So that, right, you've got this ability now to have better results. So we should probably up the standards in some capacities, increase some of the quote-unquote conditions that we're training you on.
Right.
So it's definitely taken a while. So AMTB really aims to do that in a much higher fashion, let's say.
I should have mentioned this up front, just because we get or at least I get this a lot. Not the only colonel in charge of a battalion with weapons training in the front, but the way Weapons Training Battalion Quantico, we are special because in our mission statement we're the service proponent for all facets of small arms marksmanship. And everything we do obviously run through training command, but we're in charge of 2 Marine Corps orders, a marksmanship order, and the competition in arms order signed off on by General IAM. So like all the stuff that Gunner's talking about, it's done under that GO umbrella that as of TCOM 2030 that came out last week. He's also now a DC and on the commandant staff. So that relationship, you know, the relationship to ONR is hugely important, but the relationship back up to the 3-star, who's the owner of the TNR manual and the owner of the MOS manual, is super helpful because when we run the CMS every year, the Combat Marksmanship Symposium, it's really an OAG, like the LAR battalion commanders get together, Recon battalion commanders get together, and they'll go up to DCPP&O, and now DCPP&O and DCCD&I will go to the commandant to talk about force design experimentation. We have a similar model where we pull in stakeholders, you know, Paris Island, all the recruit depots, gunners at the FMTUs, Mickey Pack because there's range base specific issues, and we just talk about marksmanship. And then so every year at a minimum we get to talk to General IAMS about these things. So then again, path, as Gunner mentioned, found AMTP, but the pathway up to the 3-star that owns the source docs that'll codify this as a requirement really goes from us to General Sullivan to General IAMS.
Okay. And so, gentlemen, and I guess I don't want to go too far back and sort of bog down the conversation with context, but for those of our listeners who aren't aware that there was even a need for a change, or maybe grew up with just a KD course.
Sure.
I mean, I just learned not too long ago that, like, it's only been since, like, the 70s that infantry officers had an IOC.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago that people were just leaving TBS
sure.
and then going.
So, sorry.
Yeah, no,
I
please,
think,
yeah.
So institutional inertia, right? It exists. I don't care what organization you're with, right? I think once we form a group of people towards a common purpose and we figure it out, and we like telling ourselves that we just keep doing this. Yeah, this is all. Yeah, do this at this time for this duration, and you got it. Like, let's move on. And so I think it can be difficult for any organization to do that, like, level of introspection and honest assessment, and be like, where do we suck?
Right.
How can we update? In the military, sometimes it can be hard to look outside, whether it's the branch or the military itself, to see to look and see for some of those solutions that you can pull in. And in this respect, we're talking marksmanship, and that could be competitions, right? It could be other branches of service,
Sure,
right? Like
sure.
AMTP. Like we can look at that, take what's good from it, and then make it our own. But I think that I think that can just institutional inertia can kind of slow that, because we already figured it out. This is what we do. That's a standard, and that's it. And keep doing that.
Yeah.
So.
And what I saw, again, seeing Force Design sort of up front, with being the G3 at the division with IBEX Phase 1, and we did a lot of stuff with 1, 2, but good connecting files over to the SOIs. The SOIs were talking to division CGs and keeping them posted on IMC. And as Gunnar sort of already mentioned, when the Infantry Marine course run by ITB goes from 2 months to 14 weeks, because we're challenged by the Commandant to be elite, again, institutional inertia, or we believe in our own propaganda, well, we're already Marine infantry.
Yeah, right.
Like, how could we
Nailed
get better?
it. Yeah, we're already.
How could we get better? I mean, you can always get better, and Marines certainly should always strive to do it. I think Krulak wrote a book that talks about that, right? That's that we're all supposed to have read. So then you get a 14-week course, and now you have room for a 10-week shooting package to do all the things that Gunnar will talk about as we get more nitty-gritty into what AMTP is.
Days. Sorry, sir.
What did I say?
Weeks.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
10 days,
14 weeks is IMC, 10 days
right.
is AMTP. But again, when I had ITB at 2 weeks, I mean, you could do some more things in the 0311 package, but we couldn't have done 10 days of shooting, especially not for all the Marines and especially the weapons MOSs.
Yeah, and I think a part of it too, sort of, I guess, I don't want to say cynic, because I want to give all respect to the institution, and having, had these Marines and come back off of a successful deployment and said, you guys are all shit hot. You guys did a wonderful thing. I'm still to this day, I'm so amazed at how the amount of responsibility under such extreme conditions that these young men had to perform under. And so I almost feel as if, having been, 3 tours, the same thing, when you get back, you almost say, we did an amazing job. You guys are all amazing. And so that sort of also gets in front of your...
Hey, resting on your laurels.
Yeah, right. Like,
sure.
We're, of course we're super lethal.
Yeah, it's
we
hard.
just kick
And
these guys in the teeth.
And that's where, like, speaking to the institutional inertia,
Yeah.
like, it's hard to figure out what you're not good at if you've got some wins.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's hard to dissect
Yeah.
and go, what
Yeah,
could
like
I
you're saying
done
about
better?
night shooting.
Sure.
Like, well, of course we did night shooting. We did it almost every damn day.
Right, right. So we just, like, push ourselves to a high degree. But the foundation of AMTP is we've redefined USMC marksmanship lethality. So this definition is going to be the basis for everything that is contained within this package.
Can you
right?
dissect that a little bit?
Absolutely. So we're saying Marine Corps marksmanship lethality is the repeatable capacity of a system comprised of an individual, a weapon, and ammunition to rapidly incapacitate an enemy combatant or combatants through a physiological stop likely to result in death. So what do I mean? I almost sound like a lawyer speaking. So when you look at repeatable capacity of the system, right, that means it's not one-offs, right, and you can reasonably expect those results. So consistency is what I'm speaking to there. The rapid incapacitation, I want it now. So I'm not shooting you with cigarette bullets and you're going to die of cancer in 4 years, right? We need this to happen right now. The physiological stop. So we're not theorizing. This basically we're going with anatomical science here. I'm not assuming that you will be stopped because I cause you pain, right? So like if you shoot him in the shoulder, he'll be in too much pain, so he's out of the fight. There's not a medical textbook in the world that's going to tell you that that's always going to happen, at least not consistently. So your pain threshold may be different than mine. My arm might not work, and I don't care. And that's the day that I'm going to be a Medal of Honor recipient because I'm going to fight through it, right? And then likely to result in death because mission of the Marine Rifle Squad, like to locate, close with, and destroy. It's not to locate, close with, and capture. Right?
And mildly harass, right?
Right, exactly. Right. So that definition is the basis of like, okay, how do we do that? How do we get a Marine to that point? The package itself, we have 2 packages right now. We run what we would call an initial package, and that's to build this new foundation as we see it. And then we have an instructor package, which aims to get you beyond what the students are going to be that you're teaching,
Mm.
and to show you how to teach that.
You're right.
Within the initial package itself, some of the, we're not doing anything voodoo witchcraft or anything like that. We're looking for perfect practice. So people say practice makes perfect. That's not true.
Right.
Perfect practice does. So to take almost an eye towards drill, right? You have to perform the movement, get back, you didn't do it right. You
Right.
didn't do it perfectly, get back again, get back again, get back again. That level of precision is required. So we do a lot of dry practice, and we show this is the technique, for example, how you reload a rifle at night. This is how it's done. Oh, by the way, it's not any different than in the day. It's that way. What we're aiming for is to burn that in what we would call muscle memory.
Sure.
But not bro science, mind you. There's science to this.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to later on, a higher end goal is you perform well at marksmanship in a stressful environment, given orders, while receiving orders, right? Like there's a lot of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do that and free up that, whatever, the frontal cortex of your brain to make decisions, I have to have your motor skill actions just happen autonomously. And so that's what we're trying to go for in terms of the marksmanship. How you interface with that rifle, how you aim with it, how you pull the trigger, that is not, it's like an automatic response. It's not something that you have to consciously think about. You can see when people don't receive a lot of training, doesn't matter with what, like if we're talking about sports, if we're talking about marksmanship, doesn't matter what it is. They start to physically fumble with the devices when they do not have that motor skill,
Sure.
muscle memory.
And I really liked your analogy of driving and drinking coffee. Like two things that you're doing independent of one another and also in conjunction with. And it doesn't take a lot of like.
And I brought that up in the previous.
It's
interview.
right. Yeah. I thought that was very helpful in sort of thinking about why it is that, like we have to sort of drill this stuff in.
Yeah, and it's burnt in.
Because you've got 10,000 repetitions of having
Yep.
done that.
And so everyone, and again, we all know, practice, you just keep doing it and get the reps in and it's good. But again, it's that, no, you did not do that correctly. Like, nope, get your hand where it needs to be,
Mhm.
feel where that's supposed to be, feel how it feels like, right? And go through it over and over
Yeah.
and over and over again. The live fire, we have a set of live fire training standards that are more, I would tell you they're more difficult than the test. So the test is like a separate animal. You don't
Mhm.
get to practice the test in the course. You shoot it twice. You shoot it when you show up cold. You get briefed in the course of fire. Here are the safety rules for the range. Do it now. Perform. And you're evaluated. And then we will train you. And then the last time you take the test is on those are the last bullets you'll shoot. You don't get warm-ups.
And you haven't seen that course of fire yet.
Not from day 1 to day 10. That's
Yeah.
the only times you do it is
Got
day
it.
1 and day 10. But the training standards are extremely difficult. The training standards, like short range rifle day and night, quote unquote long range rifle, and obviously pistol as well for those who need it. Pistol during the day. Night pistol is an equipment issue that we're not ready to solve right now. Sorry, but that, so those training drills are more difficult than the test because, the old adage, sweat and training bleed less in combat.
Right.
It's the same way. The test is still difficult and it's a good test. The training standards are going to get you there. They're a little bit worse.
Yeah. Well, you would be doing a disservice to the Marines if you had a training package that was less than what they're going to see in the test, and then
right.
they start failing
And,
the test.
and I'm sure a lot of listeners can appreciate this. Like, I'm not super old, but I'm definitely not a young guy. And I've been in units, late 90s, like PT was practicing the PFT. So there's efficacy in practice, and that's what that is okay, this is what I know my test is. I am going to run a mock test. That's practice. But training is something else.
Right.
And that's where we see the Advanced Marksmanship Training Program. It's training.
Right.
You're not just constantly practicing this test. Because I don't care if you get good at the test. I don't. I care that you can shoot and have lethal effects on your worst day. When your brothers see your left and right are dying, someone professionally trained is trying to kill you, you have a mission, you have all this stress, and you have to shoot that guy in the head at 300 meters. That's what I care about, right? So that's what the course aims to do.
And you don't have the time to like get the windage,
No, do it now.
lay down a carpet so
perform-
that you don't get your elbows grinded.
No, performance on
Right,
demand.
right.
The other part, one other part with the standards is we do not decouple speed from accuracy. So let's call it legacy training.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter where you go. Typically, when you're trying to train marksmanship at scale, they will have a ceiling for time. Right? You may just have do this within 60
So like
seconds.
the KD course that we all grew up with, that bad boy is going to be up, but it's going to be up for a while you
Yep.
try to figure out how you're shooting, and you've got a cap of how many times you're going to be able to shoot at that thing. It's going to come down eventually, but
Which
it's
is
a damn long time.
So right now, and I'll dovetail back to my point here. So recruits and student lieutenants, they still shoot tables 1 and 2 because it's a good introduction into marksmanship, right? For the kid off the street.
Mhm.
And then for sustainment annual rifle qualification, that's what once you're in the, you're no longer an entry level student. You're a full fledged Marine, right? You're in the FMF. That's what you'll do, and that's good. AMTP aims for whose main mission is to kill people for a living. We're looking at the infantry. Probably need to give them a little bit more. That's not saying we're taking anything away from anyone
Right.
else, but we're recognizing that is your primary function. And if you go to, I don't know, whatever the MOS is, if you have an MOS that's primarily, deals with a computer, right, beyond sending emails and making a PowerPoint, that Marine probably has a really good computer.
Mhm.
And I hope that they do, right, because they need it. Whereas Lance Corporal Costa, who's in an infantry battalion,
Sure.
yeah, I don't really care how his computer's looking, right?
Right.
Like, what I care about is how well can that Marine shoot.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I this point definitely resonates with me because as we were shifting from a very infantry centric employment of forces in Iraq as an Amtracker, here's your sort of core competency stuff. But as soon as we can even get a check in the box, here's the infantry TNR. Start getting familiar with this because this is what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely appreciate that. The guys who are going to do this every day need to have this extremely high level of proficiency. For those of us who may be coming in to augment or reinforce or whatever, here's where you need to be. And just understand the proficiency level is going to be a little bit less.
And that's not a novel idea either, right? We've seen that recently in recent years in terms of equipment, right? Like
Sure.
we have to equip them differently because they have different requirements.
Mhm, mhm.
So if you're going to storm this city and clear it out, clear and zone, you might need different stuff as opposed to someone who may be charged with, hey, we need you to provide security in this rear area,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And it's not better or worse. These are just requirements
Right.
as defined by your mission.
Right, right. Well, one of the things too that I definitely wanted to get into because you'd mentioned a few things about obviously the training and some of the changes. Before we get in, I guess the specifics of the training, one thing I wanted to reinforce because I think it's an important thing for people to understand is that this isn't just because someone empirically felt like their Marines or they themselves weren't at a high enough proficiency level. This is scientific, data-driven
Yeah.
analytics that have led. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, what went into the development of this? I mean, you did mention that you those who came up with sort of scoured the DoD to find this Air National Guard sergeant. What was he doing that resonated? And then once all of the big thinkers started to break down what he was doing, what fed into
So
sort of where
here's
we are?
how 2 tests were conducted. Let's say that. They were known as the General Mental Skills Training. That was just the moniker given to it. One was in 2018, and then a second one that was much more thorough was executed in 2019. And that was with one of my predecessors, the former Gunner Vigiani, but that was with, again, he was the director of MPMS, and O&R. So the same guys that, they also founded, these are the guys, they organized this test. Let's run some Marines through this, right? And we do pre and post test measurements. And they also did the CQB portion. So they did like basically 3 weeks. And they pre and post test them not only on the marksmanship training standards, but also in CQB scenario, right? Very like unknown environment. Like, good luck. Here's you make like, yep, there's threats in the house and there's non-threats. Like, have a
Clear
good
the
one.
building.
Right, and they did it with like systems and whatnot.
Hmm.
And where they take that data, that's where you can see a exponential improvement in terms of performance. So I'm not just speaking, yes, they obviously shot more accurately and they shot faster, right? Speed and accuracy, they did that and it was amazing. But they shot placement also changed, meaning once they when they were in the shoot house in like the quote unquote pre-test, I can't remember the exact numbers. The vast majority of shots taken were aimed center mass because that's what we're
We
trained
do,
to
yeah.
do.
Mhm.
Right. Now, what happens when enemy has armor on? You have a problem, center mass. Not to go keep dive down some rabbit holes, but rapid blood loss. You can have upwards of 15 seconds of cognitive life
Sure.
in you performing actions. So what I'm getting at is, so now
Yeah.
you got to go to the brain box. What you saw post testing, 90 some odd % of the shots taken were taken on the enemy's face. And the accuracy and the time was all through the roof. So that's where they collected data and said, we found something. Like, we actually found something. This is real. I think we got lucky in around after that test was done, all the gunners started talking about it really, and then you saw IMC start to come online, and it was like, we need to modernize the infantry and like overhaul it. We need them to be more lethal in a lot of regards, and that's where O&R was able to provide that. Initially at the time, it was with SOI East only during testing. And they were collecting all of that data in those Marines. Same kind of thing, pre-test, post-test. Let's see what your performance is before you're trained. Now, once it's completed, where are you? And then you see the results are just absolutely exponential. But as far as us identifying, quantifying, this is how bad we are, so to speak. All of that's in that robust capabilities-based assessment.
Right,
I
right.
wouldn't be able to paraphrase it down to you. I can tell you some elements of it.
But it exists.
It absolutely
yeah.
exists. It absolutely
That's important.
exists,
That's
yeah.
important to tease out. And then, so I guess could you get into? I guess not to bog us down with some of the minutia, but like, what is it that we are seeing differently in like varying distances, different?
I'll give
states?
you an example.
Yeah.
Here's a training standard, and we'll see guys. They will routinely do this towards the end. This is not the test. The test, side note, is known as the Infantry Marksmanship Assessment. But for the training standards with AMTP, one of the things we have them do is in a time limit of 12 seconds from standing to prone, and this is, let's say, during the day, your optic will be set on 1 power magnification. You'll have a 12-inch steel target at 300 meters. Inside of 12 seconds, you got to hit it, standing to prone. So you are standing up, the buzzer beeps, you got to get down to the prone. If you decide to magnify in, which you probably have to, you power it all under the clock, and you fire until you hit it. You got to do that 3 times. So that equates to a headshot at 300 meters. And I'm making you do it right now 3 times. If you don't meet that time in those 3 iterations, you failed. I don't care that you did it twice. I care that you did it 3 times. Right? That's just one training standard that's an example. Nighttime, the only thing that's different from that is the target gets a little bigger, and that's equipment issue. It gets to be a 12 by 24 target. It's what's known as a BC zone steel. It's shaped, it's like a silhouette of a small human.
Okay.
But it's 12 inches wide from the head down to the bottom. It's 24 inches. Same thing though. Standing to prone, the laser is off. You have 12 seconds to hit that thing. Do it now and do it 3 times. Obviously, each iteration restarts the clock.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it sort of a median or
1 shots? So let's say just to take it down in the close bay, rifle at the low ready, weapons on safe, buzzer goes off. We want to see a shot within an 8-inch circle from 7 meters away. We want to see that in 1 second, 1 second or better. And so if you heard me say earlier that typically when we do marksmanship, we just make this ceiling time. The difference is 1 second into an 8-inch circle is extremely difficult.
sure?
And not once, 3 times.
Yeah.
And then so during the day, during the night, there's no difference. It's the exact same thing. Your aiming device changes. You're not looking through the SCO now.
Right.
You're using a laser. But so that's just like from the quote unquote long end to the short end. That just gives you a snapshot of what they can do coming out of there, what they can do showing up. I have not seen anyone pass, I'd say, even 25% of the standards upon showing up. And we've had students we've had the captains, some of the captains at IOC. We've had MASOC operators. I've had dozens of gunners go through. So we've got a smattering of experiences. We've had some guys from the Marine Corps shooting team, but the standards are difficult enough that you're not. It's very rare that you're going to see somebody pass them on pretest. It's just not. It's not quite there.
Yeah.
Afterwards, that starts to go up through the roof.
Yeah. So.
Just to, hammer on some Gunner's points and things we talked about before is there is some emotion, as you alluded to, tied to this. Like we went through the long war, what my Marines weren't good enough, and Gunner really is hitting it on the head, and from standing to prone, adjust the magnification or scope. Well, until we had the SCO, that was not a thing that an 0311 could do. So as we get the great technology, the IR, the SCO, the PVS 31 Bravos, these night vision goggles have a thermal SL3 device on them, right? So when we have that technology, we can train to a higher capability. And then some of the technology that Gunner's talking about, a shot timer, Bluetooth to a phone or a pad with a database on it that automatically collects the score and gives you the hit factor, which is speed divided by accuracy. These are just tools that the Marine Corps didn't have when we were all growing up. So since we have the technology and the tools, thanks Commandant, thanks ONR, thanks CGTCOM, like we would be wrong not to drive the training in the direction that Gunner and the battalion's taken it.
So it's also modernized how we collect and score training. So this is what the Colonel's speaking to is called the Joint Marksmanship Assessment Package. And it's basically software that ONR developed and gave it to the Marine Corps. And it allows for the scoring of complex marksmanship events such as this to be basically near automated. It's an electronic scorecard, but it computes it all immediately. It's Bluetooth to the timer. It's absorbing that. So we're not going to end up in we figured it out, we're good, because we can constantly and immediately analyze. So I can tell you just when you're taking the IMA, if you didn't do so well at a drill, I can tell you why. And I can tell you why beyond, you just weren't accurate or you weren't fast enough. I can tell you where you weren't accurate. Like in your string of shots, which one did you throw out? Which one were you, maybe you were, your split times, your times between the shots.
Right.
Maybe that's where you're slow. And then as an instructor, I'm trained to a high degree that I can sit there and say, this is what's causing that. I've been with you for X amount of days. I know you. This is what you're doing, man. And this is how you fix that. You can isolate the problem and you can fix it. And then again, programmatically, we can analyze that and say, what do we need to do that's better? How can we improve? And we have all of this data.
Right.
So it's definitely helped us in a lot of ways, for sure.
Do you want to talk? So that's like and I learned it from these guys. That's the micro data. Do you want to talk about what JMAP and all the stuff ONR can do from a macro data and get to
CG
decision?
With the spare lethality. So in the course of IMC happening, ONR was the data collectors, and they utilized JMAP for testing the marksmanship training that IMC would do, the Infantry Marine Course, if I didn't say that. In the course of that, so they would show the JMAP data that shows your micro data and your macro. Your macro would be just your cumulative score, represented by, as the Colonel said, hit factor. It's points divided by time. Equates to how many points you get a second. Right? Well, then the micro data will go through that even further and be like, what were your splits time? What was the time to the engagement of your fourth round, right? Where did you hit the target in the head on this drill? Things like that.
Right.
They also have basically an algorithmic simulation. It's a Monte Carlo simulation, if you're familiar with those. But they'll take that micro data collected from JMAP and they run it through this model that basically At the individual level, they'll take your data and they'll take my data, and we fight, 200,000 times. And so it acts as if like you're my target and I'm yours. Who wins? Because if you just do scoring, like hit factor scoring is very much a competition scoring model, and it can tell you, it can give you a cardinal direction, but it doesn't tell a complete story. Microdata helps in that, but at the end of the day, you can just be looking at a page full of numbers. It's like, what does it all mean? Well, you run it through the spear model, and it means that he wins 87% of the gunfights, or he wins 90-something% of the gunfights. In the course of this testing, that's how they really validated AMTP. Because each SOI was, hey, they're given the task, you can modernize, innovate, see what you come up with, and then we're going to figure out which one we're going to go with for everybody. So one coast is doing AMTP, the other coast was not, and then in the collection of that data, when they analyzed it, the Marines who received AMTP were constantly destroying the ones who didn't, at the individual level as well as the squad.
And this goes back to the analytics part. So there's data collection put into a simulator, and then quite literally the simulation fights each other.
Right, and what it stands, it's an acronym. SPEAR is speed, precision, executive control, adaptability, and risk exposure. So what we're getting at there, we also apply that as a methodology in terms of training. So if you're doing marksmanship training, you need to be measuring speed and precision. Again, accuracy and time, right? You can't decouple them. Executive control would be how well, let's say, you follow instructions, right? If I tell you this drill, 2 to the chest and 1 to the head, right? You have to exercise some level of executive control to accomplish that. Adaptability is where I'm stacking tasks. Maybe I'm telling you, shoot 6 rounds in the chest, conduct a reload, shoot 1 in the face, right? Or 4 in the face or something. You have to apply, you have to be adaptable, right? Because you're stacking all these tasks. And then risk exposure, that's where, from the instructor perspective, it's how we'll teach you to quote unquote attack the drill. Because there are things that you can do that if it was a real gunfight, exponentially increase your chances of winning. Meaning, if it's a shooting on the move drill, people who aren't trained have an inclination to start moving for several steps before they engage, getting closer, right? In a gunfight, that doesn't work that way. He who shoots and hits first wins. So it behooves you to start moving and shooting immediately, like right away. So I'm going to teach you how to minimize your risk exposure by the way I tell you how to attack the drill.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I just love when Gunnar says all this. And then go back, he said earlier bro science. Like, so literally bro science, as I've come to learn, is like, I'm a colonel. I got some deployments and, and he's a gunner and he's got some deployments and we just sit around and we're in charge of the marksmanship order and we just change stuff. No, this is like real science tied to ONR with real human performance scientists figuring this out and making the best decisions that this group can for the service, and in the case of AMTP, for the infantry community.
And reinforced by experimentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's a huge thing. I mean, there's so much churn right now with all of the – let's just start with General Neller saying we're not ready for the next fight.
Yeah.
And we're on a glide slope, depending on what side you sit on, whether it's going to be successful or not, but we are making a change.
Yes.
We are adjusting to meet that very clear need. One of the big criticisms has been the lack of experimentation, but that is not the case here.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And the experimentation for IMC was obviously broader, right? It wasn't just fixated on the marksmanship, but this is obviously what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we alluded to it a little bit too, is that this seems to be nested within a lot of the different sort of campaign or the operational vision of Marine Corps leadership as we're talking about logistics and contested environments, EABO.
So when you dive into that, I think I'll summarize it in the way that I see it all is, your average rifle company, rifle platoon, they're going to be in sustained combat operations. So gone are the days of being a fobbit.
Right.
Going out for a few hours and coming back, those are gone.
Go to your can.
Right.
Eat from the DFAC.
Right. Those days are probably gone. So as it relates to marksmanship, you need to shoot better for if for a million reasons, but for one, logistics. You said it, right? You have this amount of bullets. I don't know when I'm going to get you more, so please make them all count, right? Make them all count. We
Pretty
can't,
please.
yeah, we
Yeah.
can't. We're not death blossoming, as they say. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
You got to make headshots, like as much as possible. Make headshots, destroy the central nervous system, and put the lights out. And you still have, you did that in 2 shots. Great, you got 28 more rounds in your mag. Let's see if you can make that 28 dead enemy, right?
And honestly, we just spent 2 decades where overwhelming firepower meant going up against potentially just someone in a dish dosh, or maybe something that they acquired, over the internet.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about great power competition and near peer. We're talking about body armor and folks that are used to using it and wearing it correctly, and employing their forces who have training with
We've
it.
got one thing I would say in my combat deployments, I never had to look up, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic
Yeah,
point.
never had to. So there's going to be a lot of problems that just the average rifle squad is going to have to deal with. In our part here, Weapons Training Battalion, if we can eliminate your requirement to focus on one thing, right? You don't have to focus on shooting because you just do it. You know how to do it. You can do it. Doesn't matter the situation. That'll free your brain up. Figure out something else. Deal with that UAS, right? Deal with this. Your communications are being jammed. Quickly shoot that guy in the face and then deal with the major problem.
Right. And I think too, it seems to speak a lot to the confidence. So, I guess going back to what we were talking about with the Long War is that the confidence in a lot of units seem to come from their time. It's sort of hindsight confidence. Is that we did the workup, but when we went over there, we really kicked ass.
Sure.
Now it seems like we're getting ahead of that cycle, and Marines, I don't know, are they coming out of this? Because you've had a few iterations of this now, right? Like,
Sure.
Are Marines coming out of this feeling like, I don't know what's going to happen, but when I get there, I know I'm going to kick ass?
I will. 2 degrees of separation, right? But from regimental gunners, because point of clarification, when MPMS, Weapons Training Battalion, when we train guys, we're really training NCOs and above. So we're certifying the instructors at the SOIs to run this, right? We've trained some of the IOC instructors, and we're starting to train some FMF NCOs and staff NCOs right now. So the SOIs are in the trenches, and they're training those entry-level Marines. So my information is secondhand. But when I've talked to those regimental gunners, some of them have talked to those Marines, those privates that show up that just graduated IMC, and they talk to them and say, what do you know? What did you learn? What do you think you do well? And unequivocally, the one common theme is those Marines say, I know how to shoot. I know how to shoot, and they say it confidently.
Yeah, and just, plug in for TCOM 2030, page 5, infantry entry-level training. Talking about IMC students entering the FMF more competent, able to analyze critically debrief training evolutions, but specifically in marksmanship, with dramatically higher weapons handling and deployment skills than have been achieved in the past. So it's you had the analytical, certainly the anecdotal is out there that this is working. And again, when it does matter what we're doing, and it does matter how gunners train it, but 10 days. I think CMP tables at ITB, or when you went to Iraq or Afghanistan as CENTCOM requirement, it was like 2 days. So more time doesn't always equal better, but more time training like Tom Brady or some other professional athlete.
Perfect
practice
for
is
sure.
going to make you that much better.
This isn't a FAM fire.
No, right. And CMP tables oftentimes were a FAM fire. Did we pass? Did we even score? I mean, everyone was trying. I mean, I was trying, and all the time
For sure,
as a CO, a company commander, battalion commander, to do the best I could. We just didn't know any better. I went from iron sights on M16 to getting the RCO, and I'm sitting there getting ready for shooting the next day. Me, XO company gunny. I'm trying to put a mechanical 0 on the thing, and realized that didn't work. I was like, hey, XO, I think it went down like 230 clicks. I broke this. Can you fix that and give me another one? He's a Naval Academy guy, so he's reading the TM, but and there was no magnification. I mean, I had standard magnification. We had PVS 14s. This is just a better. I mean, this isn't even biased as the CO. I mean, I've only been here 7 months. Just as a professional, this is some of the best training with some of the best equipment that I've seen in almost 26 years.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying hearing the how intentional a lot of this is, and not to say the stuff that we did wasn't. Obviously, speaking of time constraints, we had those for units that are literally working up as soon as they're off their post deployment 96. But at the same time, like even when we had PSOs, we had these MTUs within the major subordinate commands. Still, your sort of metric was, look how many holes are in that target.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
It's true.
Literally.
Yeah.
And then that equated to a score, and you had enough time till everyone on the firing line was done generally.
Yeah, and you did your ammo expenditure report, and everyone had 10 fingers, 10 toes, man. That's great training.
Sure.
And it is it's a holistic update in marksmanship training, and I say that from all the way from everything we talked about, right? It's got difficult training standards, but down to the target itself. It's lethality-based scoring, meaning anatomically, when you put bullets in this zone, this is how you kill the enemy. Putting bullets in that zone, right? Like, you hit him in the shoulder. No, I don't care. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you did not. There's no assurance that you rapidly incapacitated that guy, right? So like that's when I say it's a holistic update. So we're using different techniques to collect the data, right? The target's different,
Right.
And then the training methodologies are drastically different.
Well, especially when you're talking moving targets. It's like, well, I hit him in the shoulder. Well, did you?
Yeah, we've got that we think ironed out. That also was a Gunner Symposium output. We should be dealing with that in the infantry TNR CCRB, which I believe is in June. But my section ran a test again with ONR, and we took what we trained during the AMTP initial package, and we did a test with postgraduate MCT Marines, and was like, let's see what we can do. In short, I'll tell you that we'll get them hitting targets over 300 meters away, moving 10 miles per hour.
Wow.
That's fast. And why was it 10? Because that's as fast as the robot goes.
Yeah.
True story.
But
And to be clear, they don't know they don't know the speed of the target before they would step up. We taught them how to determine their lead under exposure. And for those listeners that are writing things down, the exposure zone was it was perpendicular to the line of sight, and it was about 30 meters. So you're talking about 7 seconds ish of exposure time. So buzzer goes off, boom. The Marine doesn't see the target. His face was covered up essentially. It would, cover comes off, target's moving. It's in the engagement zone. Kill it now, from a braced kneeling.
Oh.
So at any rate, sorry, I
No,
kind of went down a rabbit hole.
No, I appreciate that. This show's all about rabbit holes.
We're attacking it. We are attacking all of these problems, kind of listed in the CBA, and AMTP seems to be the right compass to use to find a way out of bad situations. So
yeah, and then technological advance, we can get at that because General IAMS, TCOM, obviously with a lot of help from SysCom, purchased TMITs. Trackless mobile infantry targets. They're robots. It's like a pop-up target on wheels, and when we've used them with 0203 students, we've did a live fire IA drill, contact left, break contact, and as they're breaking contact, live fire, the robots are maneuvering on them, right? So it's just so much different than when we were coming up, and it's just different. It's not a good or bad different.
Right.
And the service is really, I think, doing a good job paying attention to the technology that we can get to enable infantry training, which we just didn't have when I was coming up.
No, that's really reassuring because there's so many times where we do get into this. Well, one, there's this is how we always did it sort of mentality, but then two is that, it's too hard to try to implement these sort of off-the-shelf technologies into our training plans. So
yeah, it's still pain in the. It's still problematic, but I mean, like everyone that I talk to knows and understands that we're trying to keep doubling down on finding the best thing. And again, TCOM 2030 talks a lot about doing this and continuing what not just us, but a lot of people in training and TCOM have done. More, better, quicker kind of thing. But the acquisition, I'm not an acquisitions guy. It's still probably going to be problematic. But certainly, just as we're talking here through SCO, IR, PVS 31s, robot targets. I mean, it's been huge and quick.
I think problematic and acquisitions are synonymous, but
right.
you know,
Yeah.
kind of redundant there. But
Yeah.
one of the questions I have though, and just thinking about, you know, say a stand-in force or even an expeditionary advanced base, you will have Marines who aren't O3s within the WES.
Yeah.
What does this look like? Because most of what we've been talking about has been an infantry-centric sort of model. Are we looking at sort of a train-the-trainer for these major subordinate commands, MTUs? I know there's a lot of acronyms there.
No. So where it sits right now, so CG, Training Education Command, Lieutenant General Imes, is having us look at what can we strip out of AMTP and give it to MCT, right? So there's testing going on right now.
Literally next week.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Us and SOI East really looking at that and trying to see what can we give, because we know, you know, there's a lot of constraints and restraints, right? So
Sure.
it's not, you can't give everything, right? And you probably don't have to, as we just said before. But what can we do and measure how does it actually improve their capabilities? So that's underway right now. Further efforts is definitely, we gotta really start pushing it out to infantry leadership in different forms, different capacities. I see that as really an AITB. And that's not to say, you know, you run the 10-day package in
Right.
infantry unit leaders course, but it's something, right? Like maybe they get briefed on, this is what the Marines are learning.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you set up this range. Here are the procedures. This is how you facilitate this training, because they need to sustain the capability that the infantry privates are getting right now.
Yeah.
Right. So this is, I always say this, it's a first world problem. So this is true probably throughout several other skill areas in IMC. You have privates that are trained better than their staff sergeant was. We should not look at that as a bad thing. It's a good thing.
It is, yeah.
It's a first world problem. And in some regards, it's going to take a generation to completely wash out, right? So when Private Costa finally becomes Staff Sergeant Gunny Costa, then you're not going to have to worry about what the leaders know, right? But until then, we probably got to start introducing leadership in some way to AMTP.
So agreed all. And obviously going to talk through the MCT test. And so just plugs for, as I talked about, like what the battalion's responsible for. So ARQ is new. I think, well, it's not new. I mean, I think most people are tracking that.
But that started October? Is that when that
We've done it on about a year and a half now.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's been running for a bit.
Yeah, so that's out there. That comes from the CBA, and a lot of testing Gunnar talked about, like commanders, sergeant majors. I also run rifle range for the NCR. Use your quotas, right? Seriously, use your quotas. Competition and arms program. Send your Marines, and we've actually had really good attendance at Marine Corps marksmanship competitions. This year is the first year that we've added TMITs in a training package to shoot at moving targets. MIC's former division matches, they're open for everyone, and we're adding a night competition. A lot of Marines that we talk to haven't shot at night since MCT or TBS. So, and then as the new competition and arms program comes out, we purposely, I don't mean lowered the bar to make it easier. Easier to get points in an intramural. We lowered the requirements, so units. So you could, in theory, have a staff sergeant lieutenant go out and run a unit intramural, right? Which could be, you know, practice for a Marine Corps marksmanship competition. We're having to turn people away, right? And so if you got a bunch of folks, I think 9th ESB in Okinawa, we have to turn people away from, but they're doing their own intramural program, right? So maybe next year, out in Okinawa, they, you know, we only let the, you know, if they continue to do their own intramurals, we only let the best teams in. So there's multiple, and this is, so we talk about like legacy and history, and how do we adapt but keep the good stuff. The competition and arms program has been around for a long, long time, right? And I'm not saying that now battalion squadrons don't have anything to do because we're at like 1 to 3 depth to dwell. There's always plenty of stuff to do. But again, you know, if you want to, somebody's interested in being a good marksman, maybe getting a distinguished badge, or you just, for PME purposes, especially in a non-infantry unit, and you just want to compete, you know, talk to the Marine Corps shooting team, get a hold of them and figure out how to do it. And again, we're trying to make it easier for folks to do that. But going back to EABO out in Mic Far East out in Okinawa, you know who won the team competition? Just guess what unit won the team rifle and team pistol competition. Mass 2.
Oh.
Mass
No
2.
kidding.
Yes, Mass 2, and they shot really well. And then you think about an EAB and a sensing EAB that out there with CAC2S extending the air aviation command and control bubble for the mall commander. We got all this great infantry package in the infantry, for a DASC-like element. Are you dumping an infantry battalion on that to secure them? Absolutely not. Logistics, physical electromagnetic signature.
Yeah.
So as we work through, what parts and pieces AMTP we push over to MCT to increase those ARQ scores. I think this is the type of mentality that we have. We'll continue to do these things, but also too, I think on at unit commanders levels, what historical programs do we have to get Marines out there continuously shooting? And they love it. I mean,
For
they do.
sure. I mean, that's what you damn raise your right hand to do.
Yep.
I mean, if you're joining the Marine Corps, it's kind
Yep.
of go part and parcel. But I think both of you brought up some really interesting points. I think one is, and I think it all just sort of comes down to, for those leaders who are listening, clearly white space on your TEEP is at a premium.
Oh yeah.
So to sort of pick up and sort of block off a 10-day thing for even a small portion of Marines is not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but to take advantage of some quotas, working, just thinking outside the box rather than having just sort of a default setting like, I don't have the time, I'm not going to be able to do this thing. And then when you hear some of these success stories coming out of non-infantry units, it's really promising.
Yeah.
Also, and to go to Gunner's point about how the junior Marines coming in are better trained than some of the more senior leadership, and how that's a good thing. I think, what are you guys thinking about in order to get ahead of that, sort of the declination or the atrophy of those skills? Like, what are we looking at as far as sustainment?
So this is where I always say, like, MPMS's like cycle of operations is research, develop, implementation, and manage, right? So right now, as it relates to AMTP, we're in big I, right? We have to push forward with further implementation into the FMF. Eventually, right? Maybe some aspects of the IMA, like it becomes their annual requirements, right? We got to push forward with that. So those efforts right now, I'd say midterm, we're looking at, we got to establish AMTP, the initial and the instructor course, as formal POIs. And continue to certify instructors at the SOIs, possibly at the FMTUs, right? We got to make it sustainable at a larger scale. It's difficult to do, especially on the instructor side.
And what about ranges then? Are you guys talking to sort of the range folks about?
One of them.
Okay.
Yeah, one of them we are. And it's not like a barrier entry or anything like that. They throughput for those units is pretty high. They've got a pretty robust day job as it is.
Yeah.
So we have to figure that out, and like who can help us out in terms of
because that would really suck. You have this great package, everybody wants to do it, but no bases can support it.
And it's certainly it's not easy to teach. I'll tell you that now.
Yeah.
It's really not. It's not something. I think when if you water down the staff, the watering down is exponentially decreases, right? I've used the word exponential a lot. Like it exponentially decreases. Like a shitty instructor is going to teach students in a terrible
How
way.
to be
right.
shitty shooters.
We're all going to be shitty. Like,
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting watered down, and then that resets perception, and it becomes the new normal, right? And so then nobody knows what the right answer was anymore because we all suck.
Well, I can imagine nobody wants to report that I had over half my unit fail this damn thing, so then you start changing the criteria of what a success look like.
And then a good
but I mean, again, don't disagree, but we've not heard any stories for PFCs, again, and they've got combat instructors and they're well trained through, and I mean, they're training themselves now.
Yeah.
We're not hearing from the SOIs that we have a significant increase in attrition because of this harder standard, right?
So, yes, sir. And so, in terms of sustainment, the way we're looking at this is like, the AMTP is your training, right? And maybe you got to do the IMA, say, every 6 months.
Yeah.
So, again, there's a TNR conference coming up in June. We'll see what happens with that. But it's not designed for you to do – you don't do the 10-day package as sustainment. You wouldn't do that.
No, I get that,
And you wouldn't – and testing showed that you didn't need it. They actually needed about 2 or 3 hours worth of practice.
Right, because that pre-test is going to have much higher marks than they would have just coming in completely unfamiliar with the program altogether, right?
So, you mean the post test?
No, when they first, so you
When-
get the pre-test. So if they've already been through AMTP, now you're doing sustainment training. Theoretically, your pre-test is
I will let you know when that happens. 'Cause
Okay,
I don't
yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
I haven't. So I haven't gotten the quote unquote sergeant yet,
yeah.
or the NCO who has been an IMC graduate. So I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, how does he do? That'll be interesting.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
again, in the package, it's somewhat modular, right? Based off your needs. Like IOC does it, they do a version of it, and it's what they feel is appropriate for their student population and what they can deal with in the schedule. Same thing with the SOIs. So when you come to Weapons Training Battalion, you get everything that we have. You get like, so what I mean to that is like pistol. Whereas the SOIs don't do it. Why? Because the infantry doesn't have pistols. I'm not saying they should, shouldn't. I'm just right.
Right.
That's the differences in the courses, and it's designed to be modular in that way. Stick to the methodologies, stick to the material, and like, yep, here's
Right.
your references
Yep,
and
yep.
what you're looking at. And the battalions develop those with O&R, and we'll be okay, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate your generosity in coming down, crossing the freeway, come be with us
No,
today.
thank you.
One question I do have. So this all seems like really exciting, and I'm really happy that there's the analytics to back up
Yeah.
what's on paper. What are the other services saying about this? I mean, the word's got to be getting out, right? I mean, this came from an air guard unit.
I will tell you that I wouldn't know.
Oh,
I've gotten a couple of, I don't know how to put it to you. I don't even want to call them requests. I've got a couple. A guy knows a guy who's with this organization that wants to see and know. I get that request more often than not from non-military sources,
oh,
like federal
Yeah.
organizations and
Mhm.
stuff. Of guys just know a guy and they heard about it and they want to check it out. And hey, can we maybe send a guy through a course? And
right.
But no, I don't. I wouldn't know what the other branches know about it or think about it.
Huh. Because I think about, was it Mojave Viper or one of the 29 Palms iterations? You know, you always, every now and again, you would get an Army,
Sure.
soldier to
Somebody
come out to
comes
want to
in,
look
yeah.
out, check it out. Like, oh, man, you guys are really
Yeah.
doing some gnarly stuff. Nothing like that so far.
I can't say that.
Okay.
No, sir.
No, I
I mean,
haven't heard
the
anything.
SOIs may have had communications with
Yeah.
someone, but mm-mm.
Well, it's their loss then.
But again, I
True
think
story.
Yeah.
still, we're talking, it's the history of the service still is every Marine Rifleman, which we're still continuing to work on and a little bit more focus on making the infantry Marine the best possible. But I mean, this is still unit service culture. To the commandant said, there's things that force design's not going to change, and I think this is one of them. And you just don't. I mean, you just have other services that you don't even have to qualify on the range every
Yeah,
year. So maybe
that's a
that
good point.
could be some of it. But again, there's a lot of things that we do in the Marine Corps that people are like, oh well, that's a really good idea. We should do that. So maybe
Later on down the road. Well, gentlemen, again, thank you so much for coming in. Colonel Jones, Gunner Costa, this has been fantastic.
Thank
It's
you,
super
sir.
informative. And, for our listeners, you can go to you have a Weapons Training Battalion website.
yes, Facebook page. Marine Corps Shooting Team has an Instagram page. Gunner's got
So I have a SharePoint site. It's like filing through the battalion's website. Nothing on AMTP is on there, and that's like purposeful
Okay.
because it's a public website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, there's been some articles, I think Marine Times did, some, or maybe it was on ARQ.
Possibly.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But this is really great, and I'm excited to see. Maybe we'll get you guys back on, and this time next year, something we could see.
yeah, sure.
A little more
just like
data collection. And
Yep, and we talked about testing with MCT, and as Gunner says, when you work with John Costa, you don't need to be funny because he's funny for enough for everybody. But like first world problems, one of the things as we close out, and again, thanks for having us. We owe Marksmanship campaign plan, like just to keep ourselves honest. We've not even taken the lethality-based targets over to the pistol range. We should do that, right? Especially, so there's just a lot of stuff to do and things that we've tasked ourselves with. And so, yeah, it would definitely be great to come back and talk to you about that because it's an exciting time to be a weapons training battalion for sure.
Sure.
We're going to be busy for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
sir.
Nothing doesn't get any easier. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you so much,
Thank
and
you.
Yep,
we'll
awesome.
be in touch.
Thank you.
Scuttlebutt is a production of the Marine Corps Association. I am William Truding, but you've also heard the voices or contributions of Vic Rubel, USMC retired, Nancy Lichman, or Ty Frazier. The opinions expressed in this episode do not reflect the official stance of the Marine Corps, DoD, or Marine Corps Association.